Hey everybody, this is JacqBean coming back with the final episode review of The Walking Dead Dead City. This episode was called Doma Schmo, and it was really good. They did a really good job of ending what they'd come from. So from the beginning, you knew it was about Maggie getting Hershel back from the Croat, and this episode shows that she did in fact finish that, but there is more. And you'll be happy to know, because I was pretty happy, that we will have a second season of Dead City that I'm sure they'll get to after they solve the issues of the writers and the actors strike. So without further ado, let's get to reviewing. So this episode begins with Negan having seen the flare that Jenny sent off and thinking that it was Maggie. He starts to go. He's looking for her. He's like, Maggie? He wants to try to find her. And he actually ends up seeing Jenny, and he's like, what are you doing here? But then you also see Maggie running up there, like, going, Jenny? You know, she wants to catch Jenny before she tells Negan that she's been lying, that she's really trying to get him. And Jenny was trying to tell him that, you know, she was giving him a hug. She was just so glad to see him. She even spoke, and he was just kind of, he didn't want her there. He wanted her to be safe. He pushed her off, but he knew that she wasn't going to stop. So he told her that he was the one that killed her father. That not only did he kill the 4 people, but her father was the 5th person that he killed. And of course, that just broke her heart. For her, Negan had replaced who her father was. So he knew that was the only way to get her to go. He wanted her to go back. And Armstrong said that he would take her back to the bricks so that she could be safe. Negan even looked at her and said, you don't know who I am. Just anything to get her to go away. And I think it kind of resonated with her because that's what Maggie said. But even Maggie was a little surprised that he didn't listen to her, but that he said what he said to make her leave. And it did make her leave. So she left with Armstrong to go back to the mainland. So Negan and Maggie just kind of went back to their hideout, the place where they could look out the window and they could see anybody driving down 34th Street. And they did see a car that was driving down 34th Street. So they were going to leave the building and start to make their way to the sanctuary so that they could put their plan in place to get Hershel. So as Negan and Maggie were walking down the street, they did see that at the sanctuary that you could see the smoke coming out. And he just kind of turned around and looked at her and says, well, I guess you was right, Maggie. And she's like, well, let's just get out of here. Let's keep going. But as they were walking through to get to the sanctuary, I think Negan's spidey senses started tingling. That how is she right? You know, how would she know? And he really kind of put the pieces together and said, hey, they weren't taking grain from you. They weren't taking the food trying to starve you. I was the prize. He wanted you to bring me to him. And it was very reminiscent of what happened with Maggie and Tommaso. She knew, once she realized that he had pulled those oxygen tanks out of his bag, that he had a plan, that he was working with. And I think this is what Negan started to think about Maggie. They fought a little. They had a really cute little fighting scene, but ultimately the Barazzi found them. And then within their little tussle, Negan had dropped his knife because he wasn't going to continue to try to hurt her. He understands that she can't forgive him for what he did, and he really does get it. But when the Barazzi came in with the Croat, she picked up the knife that he had dropped and put it to his neck. Negan had been caught for the Croat. I felt some kind of way about this, and they're conflicting kind of emotions, because I definitely was the person that was like, you need to kill Negan for what he did to Glenn. And I don't expect her to be able to forgive that. I don't know that I would. But I think that a lot of it is that if you choose to do this, it really doesn't stop them. So, for example, even with Negan, if he gets you to do what he wants, he just kept getting you to do what they wanted. When he was the Sanctuary's Negan. I do think they did a good job of really kind of humanizing them a little bit, making you understand just a little bit of why he did the things he did. And we still even understand that even Rick and that group who, was our family, they kind of did some stuff that was jacked, in order to keep everybody safe. And I don't think that Hershel is going to be safe just because she's able to give Negan to the Croat. As they are in the transport and Maggie is sitting there with the knife to Negan's neck, and the Croat just kind of talks to them to say that he had heard the story about what Negan did to the widow, and that he thought that was a good way to make her, like, she had a reason to go and get Negan and to save her son based on the things that he had done. But then he said something that made her eyes open, and he was like, and I figured that I could keep both of them. But then he did relent and just say, you can have them, a deal is a deal. When they got to the place to make the exchange, Maggie saw Hershel as he was bringing them through. She had her knife still in Negan's neck, but Negan just took the knife and pulled it down. And he just started walking. And he and Hershel get to walk past each other, and he was just like, it's good to see you, kid. And then, Hershel's able to go out to his mom. And that was pretty emotional, because you could just tell Maggie was just happy to have him back. She wasn't really thinking about anything else, what she needed to do in order to get him back, but she was happy to have him. The next time they show Maggie and Hershel, they are getting in a truck, so they've come over from New York City. They did find a boat that can bring them across, and they were just sitting in the car. She was just so happy to have him back, but he was so angry with her. And he was angry because he felt like she's never seen him. She's always been so tied up in Negan, in the feelings that she had towards him, that she didn't really pay attention to who he was, her son. A little later, the Croat takes Negan to that theater so that he can meet the Dama. And you really get a good inference on how the Croat is going to behave in this instance. He kind of looked at Negan and was like, it'll be just like having mom and dad, take care. He's still that child. He's still that person that's kind of being molded. He can be a big deal outside of the hierarchy, but he really plays a secondary role. As Negan kind of goes in and he meets the Dama, you could just see his whole persona just change, and he feels like he's running the show. He's just like, oh, she wants me to do this for her, so I can play a little hard to get. I can, work this up to what I need it to be. He didn't think she had any pull. He thought that he was the prize because the Croat made him feel like he was the prize, and he knew that he could manipulate him. But the Dame is something extra, ain't she? Not only could she get the Croat to do what she wanted, but in the end, she made sure that she was going to get Negan to do what she wanted. She said that he may have done some changing, he may have been that man, but it looks like he'd done some changing as he's wanted to get the kid, as he wanted to help Maggie get Hershel. So she came out with her ace in the hole, which was a box that she gave to Negan that had inside of it Hershey's pinky toe. And she let him know that she can go back and she could get more pieces of Hershel if he didn't do what she wanted him to do, which was to bring all these different kind of factions together. She had made mention that they had a faction in Harlem, and he just wants to bring it together and let under their authority. So remember, she really wants to sit back and play like she's secondary and rule the roost. So she wants them to have to do the stuff and make it work, and she sits back and she can control them on what they do. So not only was she able to get the Croat, but she was also able to get Negan. And at the end, he just looked defeated. He was just like, oh, shit. I don't think he wants to be that Negan anymore. I think he understands, what kind of change that he's made. But he also knows what they want. They don't want the change that he's made. They want him as the original badass Louise-wielding monster that killed Abraham and Glenn. They show Maggie back at the bricks, having Hershel there. He's sitting in his room. But she ends up going inside the room where Jenny was sleeping, and she actually put her little dinosaur right next to her, so she never burnt it up. But I didn't see it in the bag when she had it open, but she had it somewhere there. She put it there for her, want to make her safe, especially since at this point, Negan has pushed her that far away. And all he asked her to do, he said, Maggie, all I want you to do for me is to make sure that Jenny is okay. She later goes in the room with Hershel, and she just kind of tells him that she's going to make this better, that she's going to stop needing revenge or letting Negan have residence in her head and her emotions on a full-time basis, because she can't heal. And whatever it was that he was feeling, she gets it, that she wasn't there officially for him. She was more worrying about what Negan did and getting revenge on him. And she said that she was going to make it right. So I don't know if that means that she's going to go back for Negan. I can't imagine that it does, but it may. I do think that she realizes in some way that she can have the same kind of monster attributes that he has when you're doing some things for the people that you love. And as the Dama is showing Negan why he's going to do what she wants him to do, by showing him Hershel's toe, they have a split of Maggie looking at Hershel's drawings, because he can draw, and he had pictures of the different rooms and some of those things, but he also had a picture of her. I'm not sure that Maggie realized at this point that he doesn't have a pinky toe, but I think she realizes that the Croat wasn't the person that was in charge, and that it was this woman, because he created a picture of her. And the last kind of scene of it was this amazing kind of split screen that showed half of Negan's face and half of Maggie's face, as they kind of realize that there is something even bigger than the Croat happening. And I think that this is this shows what Negan's gonna have to do, and it shows that Maggie's gonna have to go and do something too. But even as that was a tremendous part of this story, the Armstrong part of the story or the episode was just as huge. So when Armstrong gets back to the mainland, he drops off Jenny and he leaves. He leaves looking at these walkers where they kill people or execute them and then hang them so that people can see. And he even stops to look at that. That's crazy. It is crazy, and I could tell that that's what he was thinking in his eyes. But he went back to the people that were in charge. You think he was in charge? He was the sheriff? Nah. It was a bunch of other people, a group of people, that when he went to them to tell him the story, he actually told them that he killed Negan, and they were kind of disappointed that you should have brought him back, because then we could have hung him up as an example to keep people in line. You find out as they continue to talk that she wasn't completely believing Armstrong's story, and she had taken a little bit out of the Dama's book, although it wasn't her, that she was like, how are your 4 daughters doing, or how are your 3 daughters doing? So she was using his children as a way to pressure him for something. Now, at first glance, I thought she was going to press him more about Negan, that maybe she didn't believe that he had killed Negan. But it feels like her pressure, was going to be about understanding the methane that they use in New York in order to get fire and heat and those kind of things, because she looked at him and said, now tell me the story again, but concentrate on the methane. Here we have 2 women using the same tactics in order to get the people to do what they want. Actually, everybody pretty much is behaving the same. So we'll see how everything rolls as we move into season 2 of The Walking Dead Dead City. So tell me what you think. It's the ending for The Walking Dead Dead City for the season. Definitely looking forward to there being some more because the story was just really getting juicy. We know that it'll be back for another season. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how Negan kind of works his way through being the king of the sanctuary, of this island, bringing all of those different peoples together as one faction. And it definitely looks like the DOMO was correct, that when they see what they have, or when the outside world begins to see what they have, that they're going to come for it. And it looks like that the people that are in charge in New Babylon City, where Armstrong is, are definitely that group of people. They're ready to get over there so that they can get this methane. And really, as you want to get over to get the methane, you're going to want to take over everything that's happening in New York City. How is Armstrong going to play into that, especially considering that they may get there and Negan is top dog, kind of leading the people. What does that mean for him? He probably did the most growth in there, Armstrong I'm talking about, because he was very black and white, and at the end he really kind of understood that this was, crazy behavior to do, how you are so strict and structured that you're hurting people. But that wasn't much different than what Negan did with the sanctuary when he was the leather man in charge with his Lucille. I think it can only get better. If you enjoyed my content, then please subscribe and hit those notifications so you know when videos come out. I'm definitely going to be doing one next week, but it'll be about the other stories in the universe. In September, we'll get Daryl's show, and in October, I believe, we'll get Fear. The Fear the Walking Dead series will end. We also got a little trailer about Michonne and Rick. One of the things that I found out, because I was concerned that because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike that we wouldn't even see it, but it looks like that it was already filmed and it's in post-production. So as long as they don't need to rewrite scenes or refilm scenes, we may be okay for it in 2024. But I want it to be a good one, so I will hope they just do it and make it good so that we get a really good story once it comes through. Thank you so much for joining me on my reviews of Dead City. I really enjoyed spending time with you, talking through our reviews and the things we loved about the show. And I hope that we'll continue to get together. So until next time.